Efforts are ramping up to reopen the Baltimore port after the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Overnight, the largest crane on the eastern seaboard arrived to help lift debris from the water, and it will be a massive undertaking. Officials say the section of the bridge trapping the cargo ship weighs between 3,000 and 4,000 tons. Chris Van Cleve has more from Dundalk, Maryland.
From the water, an up-close look at the mission facing the Army Corps of Engineers.
Pictures don't do it justice. So you're looking at a vessel that weighs nearly 95,000 tons that was sailing at about 10 knots when it had its collision with the pier.
General Scott Spellman is leading the team in an around-the-clock race to reopen the Port of Baltimore.
So you have to cut the bridge up to get it out of here?
That's correct. The piece that you see above the water here on the front of the vessel weighs anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 tons. Tonight we'll have one of the largest cranes on the eastern seaboard, so it's at least going to get cut safely into 4 pieces.
They must clear a 700-foot span of the channel by removing many thousands of tons of steel and concrete.
It's not just all this debris that you can see in the massive cargo ship. It's also everything that's sunk to the bottom. Tons of debris that's 50 feet down. It all has to come off the floor before this channel and the Port of Baltimore can reopen.
NTSB investigators were back on the cargo ship Dolly Thursday, interviewing crew members, gathering evidence, and inspecting containers on board. According to the Coast Guard, 14 with hazardous materials were damaged, but the contents, including soap and perfume, are said not to pose a threat to the public.
We need to open vessel traffic to the port because the health of the Maryland economy and the national economy depends on it.
Last night, Maryland Governor Wes Moore warned the timeline for recovery would be long.
NTSB drone footage shows the cargo ship that took down much of a 1.6-mile-long structure. Its bow girdled in steel and stacked with asphalt. CBS crews captured video of its on-ramp, which now leads only to reminders of disaster. Handheld and drone cameras are used to capture photos before cleanup. The start to what is expected to be a 2-year investigation. Also a part of Phase 1, conducting interviews with the ship staff, reviewing the ship's Voyager data recorder, engine data, manufacturer information, and inspection and maintenance history. Then at least 6 specialized teams piece together those details for a report containing the cause and sequence of events. And finally, the NTSB will issue safety recommendations, though those could come earlier in this case. Chris Van Cleve has the latest.
From the water, the scope of the accident is enormous. The cargo ship Dolly is almost as long as the Chrysler Building in New York City is tall. The wreckage sits where it fell early Tuesday morning, blocking access to one of the nation's busiest ports. We're surveying the damage with the commander of the Army Corps of Engineers.
The president called me yesterday and we spoke for a few minutes, and he made it clear this was the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers' #1 priority.
Will this be an around-the-clock effort?
We're going to go 24/7.
That sounds like a massive effort.
It is a massive effort.
General Scott Spellman's team will work with crews from the Navy and Coast Guard to begin the salvage efforts to clear the waterway and allow divers to recover the remaining 4 bodies believed to be trapped beneath the rubble.
It's not just all this debris that you can see in this massive cargo ship. It's also everything that's sunk to the bottom. Tons of debris that's 50 feet down. It all has to come off the floor before this channel and the Port of Baltimore can reopen.
Already, there is a traffic jam of cargo ships unable to get in or out of the Port of Baltimore, plus 2 cruise ships that won't be able to return to the Charm City port that employs 8,000 people.
This is a core economic engine for our state, and we have to make sure that our workers are protected.
New video shows traffic early Tuesday morning on the Francis Scott Key Bridge and that construction crew filling potholes, moments before the dollies slammed into it. And now our first look on board the giant vessel as NTSB investigators work to gather evidence and continue interviews with the ship's 21-person crew. The Dolly's voice data recorder shows about 90 seconds after the first sign of trouble, the onboard pilot called for help, asking nearby tugboats to respond. Less than a minute later, the Mayday call. Then the devastating collision. The damage on board is extensive. Part of the bridge came down on the bow, leaving a deep gash. Cargo containers with hazardous material sit sheared open.
When you get out here on the water and you look at that, you really get a sense for the massive effort that we're dealing with.
The Army Corps of Engineers has to clear a 700-foot wide channel to get the port back open. Now, the Navy is bringing in the largest floating crane on the East Coast overnight. It can lift up to 1,000 tons, but they think the piece of bridge laying across the ship weighs 3 or 4 times that.